I witnessed instant karma. Entitled mom destroyed on the train. So I was just riding the subway the other day minding my own business. It wasn't super packed, but all the seats were taken. You know, that typical afternoon rush where you can still breathe, but finding a spot to sit is a no-go. And then there was this kid, maybe 14 or 15 years old, chilling in one of the priority seats. You know, the one specifically for folks with disabilities, pregnant women, the elderly. Definitely not just any parent with a toddler, for the record. This kid, he's the real MVP of this story. Anyway, at the next stop, this woman gets on. Let's call her the entitled mom. She had a little one trotting along trying to keep up with her. She spots our hero immediately, sitting in her perceived rightful spot, and just glares. You could tell she expected him to just magically vacate the seat. But he didn't even flinch. That must have really gotten under her skin because she stomped over to him. She stops right in front of him and gives him another intense stare, clearly trying to mentally will him out of the seat. Still nothing. The kid just sat there. Then she just unleashes. If she hadn't had everyone's attention before, she certainly did now. She started yelling at him, laying into him for sitting in a reserved seat and not giving it up for someone more deserving, like a mother with a young child. I mean, her logic was completely flawed. Those seats aren't for just any parent. She just kept on, absolutely shrieking, trying to get other passengers to side with her. And for a moment, some people actually looked like they were agreeing. But then out of nowhere, this kid, our absolute legend, just calmly rolls up the right leg of his jeans. And then right there, he detaches his artificial leg and places it gently in front of the entitled mom. Oh my goodness, her face. It was absolutely priceless. She looked completely mortified and utterly embarrassed all at once. She didn't say another word, just silently backed away. And you know what? She got off at the very next stop. I'm pretty sure that wasn't even her destination. Instant karma right there. Teen mom shamed for breastfeeding. But this grandma shut her down. So there I was back in high school, and my best friend had just welcomed the sweetest little boy into the world. She was doing online classes to keep up with us, and our Friday tradition was hitting up a local spot for lunch. This particular day we decided on my favorite Chinese place, the one where the lovely elderly owner, Mrs. L, knows me by name. The best part about this place? They have a sticker right on the door declaring that breastfeeding is always welcome, which was perfect for my friend and her baby. We just ordered our food and were hanging out in the waiting area when the baby started to get fussy. My friend, calm as ever, pulled out her nursing cover and began to feed him. We were chatting away when this woman and her son, who looked about 10, walked in. I recognized the kid from when I used to volunteer at the youth center. He came right over to say hello and then innocently asked my friend what she was doing with the baby. Before my friend could even open her mouth, the boy's mother cut in. That's a disgusting thing to do. Don't you know better than to do that in public? And why are you even doing that? You're just a kid yourself. My friend can have a bit of a fiery personality, so I quickly jumped in. It's not against the law, and Mrs. L is totally fine with it. There's even a sticker on the door. Mrs. L, the sweet old lady behind the counter who had just been cooing at the baby a moment before, simply smiled at us and kept writing. The mother, however, was clearly not happy and kept going. I'm sorry, but I'm just not okay with a baby breastfeeding another baby. Can you please just stop? She demanded, clearly frustrated. That's when Mrs. L finally intervened. In her lovely, slightly broken English, she declared, "Nursing baby is beautiful thing. You have problem, you leave." She then tapped the order on the window to the kitchen, gave my friend an apologetic look for the woman's rude behavior, and then looking at the boy still standing next to me, playfully added, "Your mother, she dummy, right?" The boy burst out laughing, and his mother just grumbled, sinking further into her seat, trying to put as much distance between us as possible. When my friend finished and we got our food, Mrs. L even threw in an extra order of egg rolls, knowing they were my friend's favorite. Everything seemed fine until Monday, when I saw the boy again. He pulled me aside and told me his mom said she didn't like me or my friend. I just asked if he still liked me and he said yes. Success. Mom let her kid steal my cane. Then this happened. Okay, so picture this. I'm 28 and I've only been totally blind for about a year. It was a really rough adjustment, and honestly I was pretty scared to go out on my own at first. Most of the time I just stayed home. But one day my husband asked me to run to the bank. I was already feeling a bit anxious, but I figured, hey, I need to learn how to do things independently, right? And luckily, a grocery store was right across the street. So I decided to tackle that too. I wasn't grabbing much, just a few essentials, so I didn't need a cart. I was navigating with my cane and trying my best to use what little echolocation I'd picked up. Still, I bumped into things more than I liked. Suddenly, my cane hit something a bit softer than usual. I figured I must have accidentally nudged someone's leg, so I immediately apologized. That's when this mom and her kid came out of nowhere. The mom just snapped, "Hey, you just hit my son." I replied, "Oh, I'm so sorry, ma'am, I didn't see him there." but she went full on rage mode, yelling, "How could you not see him? He's clearly right here." Now I'm fully blind, but I don't wear sunglasses. They're expensive and frankly I don't want pity. I just want to be treated normally. I tried to explain calmly, "Ma'am, I'm blind. I can't see anything, which is why I use this cane to get around." She cut me off, demanding, "If you're blind, why aren't you wearing big sunglasses?" I get a lot of strange questions, but I usually try to be patient. I explained, "They're quite costly and I don't really need them inside." Her reaction, "You're not blind, you're faking it." That's when I really started to get upset. The idea of someone calling me a liar about my blindness, especially when it's genuinely so difficult, just infuriated me. Before I could even respond, I felt a tug. In a flash, her kid had snatched my cane right out of my hands. For anyone who doesn't get it, that's like suddenly being plunged into complete darkness and losing your only tool. Without my cane, I'm practically immobile without constantly crashing into things. My voice started to shake. "Please give that back. I really do need it." The mom just sneered. "No you don't, you liar. My son deserves to play with this more than you." I heard her and her kid shuffle away, and then I heard the sickening sound of my cane hitting metal shelves. I started to cry, flailing my arms trying to grab onto anything, and ended up tumbling into a display, making a huge mess and a lot of noise. I just curled up, feeling utterly lost and alone. Then I felt a hand on my shoulder. A deep voice asked, "Are you okay? Just stay right here." This guy, who I later nicknamed Awesome Guy, sounded like a giant. He took off, and a few seconds later, I heard a loud commotion and a crash from pretty far away. Before I knew it, he was back, helping me to my feet. He put my cane back in my hand and helped me gather the items I'd knocked over. Through my tears, I managed to say, thank you so much." I didn't know what to do. He just said, "Don't worry about it. Some people are just terrible." This amazing person helped me finish my shopping and walked me out. As we were leaving, I heard the mom yelling again. Apparently, Awesome Guy had grabbed the cane and yanked hard enough to send her little terror of a child flying into a shopping cart. I don't know if she was exaggerating, but it would explain that crash I heard. It's easy to feel isolated when you can't see, but even after that terrifying experience of being completely disarmed, knowing that there are people out there willing to step in and help me means the world. It truly restored my faith. My entitled employee forced us to babysit, so we spent her paycheck. My company recently set up a promotional booth at a local carnival, and we hired a team of temporary staff to walk the grounds, hand out flyers, and direct crowds to our setup. On the morning of the event, I gathered the team for a quick briefing before sending them out. Everyone arrived on time except for one woman, whom I'll call the entitled mom, EM. She had messaged me saying she would be 15 minutes late, but she actually rolled in nearly an hour after we started. Because we couldn't hold up the entire operation, I had already briefed and deployed the rest of the crew. When EM finally showed up, she wasn't alone. She had her 5 or 6-year-old child in tow. Given that the job required walking around a crowded carnival all day to distribute marketing materials, having a young child with her was completely out of the question, and she knew this beforehand. When I brought it up, she brushed it off, claiming her husband couldn't handle the child, so she had no choice but to bring him. I flatly told her she couldn't work while watching her kid. She scoffed and told me it wasn't her problem, suggesting that if I had an issue with it, I should find someone to babysit. Right then, my coworker, who was only scheduled to assist with the setup and teardown of our booth, stepped in. Since he had the entire middle portion of the day free, he offered to look after the child. He proposed taking the kid to grab some food, watch the carnival shows, and play some games, but made it clear that EM would need to cover the costs. EM rolled her eyes and agreed, stating she would only pay for her child's expenses, not my coworker's time. My coworker just smiled and told me not to worry because he had a plan. As soon as EM went to work, my coworker took her child on the ultimate carnival adventure. It was a kid's absolute dream day. My coworker had a staff pass, so he got into all the shows for free, but he bought the child whatever food, treats, and game tickets they wanted. They won tons of prizes and saw every attraction. At the end of the day, we gathered to log everyone's hours. EM immediately demanded to be paid for the full day, completely ignoring the fact that she was almost an hour late. She started ranting about how she deserved the full pay because of the struggles of being a mother, telling me I would never understand. I was exhausted and didn't want to argue, especially since payroll decisions weren't up to me anyway. Suddenly, my manager stepped in, gave me a subtle wink, and took over the conversation. He told EM that we had a highly successful day, and that we believed in supporting families and giving kids the best experiences. He smiled and assured her she would be paid in full for the entire shift. EM didn't even offer a simple thank you. Instead, she loudly announced to the room, "At least someone here understands," and gave me a smug, victorious look. That satisfaction did not last long. The trap was sprung when my coworker presented the bill. Over the course of the day, the child had spent about $100 on food, rides, and games. Since EM's pay rate was $15 an hour for an 8-hour shift, her total earnings came out to $120. After subtracting the $100 spent on her child, she had earned a grand total of $20 for a full day of work. My coworker had meticulously saved every single receipt, ticket stub, and transaction record, and had even taken photos of the child enjoying everything. Absolutely lost her mind and threw a massive tantrum, but with a mountain of physical evidence and her own child happily vouching for every single dollar spent, she had no leg to stand on. She screamed that she wasn't paying for any of it, grabbed her child, and stormed off in a rage. But the paperwork was already done, the expenses were documented, and we couldn't wait for payday to mail her that glorious $20 check. I witnessed a Karen get tasered over a face mask. Alright, so my husband and I were out at the big box store, totally just trying to grab some potting soil for our isolation DIY projects. Nothing too wild happening yet in our town, but they had these limits like 2 items per customer. We figured it meant everything, so we were getting a couple bags each of a few different soils. My husband was just loading up the last of 8 bags onto our cart when I heard it. You know that sound, right? That instant, over-the-top outrage? Yeah, total Karen. Are you kidding me? She shrieked. Everyone in the garden center turned. Honestly, I was almost disappointed she didn't have the classic, "Can I speak to your manager" haircut. She actually looked pretty frazzled, tugging a kid along with a super full handbasket. For a second, I actually felt for her like, girl, I get it. But then I realized she was pointing right at us. You can't buy that many. You are hoarding, she yelled. My husband, calm as could be, said, yeah, we can. We're getting 2 each. Oh, you don't fool me. I know what you're doing, she insisted. So do I, my husband replied. Go away. I just stood there, totally impressed with his bluntness. Well, Karen huffed, spun around, and dragged her kid back inside to complain to the employee near the register. We'd already paid for our items. The employee had scanned them outside earlier, and he could totally see our cart from inside. So we were done, pushed our cart out to the parking lot. Then those automatic doors opened behind us, and I heard her declare, now they're stealing. Just fantastic. We loaded the soil into the car and headed back to return the cart and check out some plants. By the time we got back, Karen had given up on convincing the employee we were some sort of dirt bandits. Now she was trying to cut in line. She had a child, you see, and her handbasket was just so full and heavy. Could she please just scooch in real quick? It would only take a second, she swore. The woman she was trying to cut in front of was young, probably college-aged, and wearing a face mask. Not a medical one, but the stretchy kind like a neck gaiter, my husband told me. This one was black with scary wolf teeth printed on it. Honestly, it made her look like someone you really shouldn't mess with, even though she was just in a Gap t-shirt and flip-flops. Mask girl just shook her head no. That's all I caught as we dropped off the cart. I picked out a couple of plants, and we went inside to get in line. And that's when the real drama started. Karen and Mask girl were near the register, practically face-to-face. It looked like Mask girl had finished her purchase, and Karen had stopped her before she could leave. I don't know if she grabbed her or anything, but Karen still had her full handbasket, so she hadn't even checked out yet. Or rather, she hadn't paid for her groceries yet, because clearly, this woman had already lost her mind. But you don't even need it now, you're leaving, Karen argued. My son could get sick because you won't give it to him, and he needs it. Mask girl shot back. No way, you can't have it. Back off, lady. But my son really likes it, and it's obviously made for boys anyway. Why would you even want to wear something so scary? Karen pushed. Because I like it, Mask girl retorted. And it has my germs on it. Why would you put a stranger's mask on your kid? Ugh, why are you being so rude? You wouldn't let us go through the checkout first, and now you're making my son very upset. Karen whined. Mask girl just shrugged. Your problem, not mine. And then as Mask girl turned to leave, Karen did something truly audacious. She grabbed Mask girl by the back of her mask. Okay, quick side note. While all this was unfolding, we were all just standing in line watching. The register was still beeping as the employee scanned items, but otherwise it was like we were in this weird hypnotic bubble. But when Karen reached out, it was like that bubble burst and everything snapped into sharp focus. Not slow motion, but I felt hyper-aware like Spider-Man. Karen reached out, people around me gasped, Karen grabbed the mask and yanked. A woman to my right shouted, and my husband stepped forward. Mask girl tucked her head down and spun towards Karen like an angry bull finding a new target. I think Karen was trying to say something like, don't walk away from me. But all she got out was, don't. Crack. The sound was so loud I thought the roof was caving in. But out of the corner of my eye, I saw Karen spasm and drop to the floor, squirming. Little Miss Mask girl had a taser. I don't know when she pulled it out. It looked like a tiny flashlight. But she absolutely put Karen down with it. And not one of us moved for what felt like ages. We were frozen. Then it was chaos. A security guard showed up, more employees rushed over, Mask Girl was just chilling like she'd done this a million times. The kid was screaming that the wolf girl killed his mom even though Karen was groaning and sobbing on the floor, clearly not dead but maybe wishing she was. Everyone in line started talking at once, trying to explain to the security guard what had happened. We hung around just witnessing the insanity for maybe 2 minutes before Karen started choking out demands for an ambulance, the police, a lawyer, the mayor, compensation and reparations. My husband caught an employee's eye, got a thumbs up when he put our plants back on a shelf, and pointed towards the door. We got out of there. We drove home in complete silence until my husband pulled into our driveway, and then we just burst out laughing. Neither of us had ever seen anything remotely like that before. We live in a quiet beach town. People are usually super relaxed and mellow. Karen was anything but, and I really hope I never have to see her again. My entitled neighbor parked his giant truck in my driveway, so I towed it. I am a single mother of 2 teenage boys, and we live in a quiet cul-de-sac. Most families on our street have multiple vehicles and park in their driveways or on the public road, which has never been an issue because everyone is usually very considerate. I am a homebody. I park my single car in my garage, and I generally keep to myself. About 6 months ago, a family of 5 moved in next door. They seemed nice at first. They used their garage for storage, meaning all 4 of their vehicles occupied their driveway. Shortly after they moved in, their youngest son turned 16 and his parents bought him a massive F-350 pickup truck. This vehicle was absolutely enormous, completely impractical for a brand new driver, and it took up a massive amount of space. On a Tuesday evening, the father knocked on my door. I answered through the screen because my youngest son had just come home sick. The neighbor explained that other residents were complaining about his son's truck blocking the street. Fearing it would get sideswiped, he asked if his son could park the giant truck in my driveway since I park in my garage. I politely declined. I explained that I use my driveway daily to access my garage. I have depth perception issues, and I did not want to navigate around such a massive vehicle or be liable for any damage on my property. He insisted, claiming it wouldn't be an inconvenience. I pointed out that the only way the truck would fit without blocking me was if it parked on my lawn, which would ruin the grass. I suggested they park the truck in their own driveway and put their smaller cars on the street. He got highly offended, accusing me of being unneighborly. I lost my temper slightly, reiterating that my answer was no, and explained that it wasn't my fault they purchased a vehicle that did not fit their property. I closed the door and through the peephole I saw him flip me off as he walked away. I took my 6th son to an urgent care clinic, where we found out he had a standard virus. The next day at work, I told my colleagues about the bizarre interaction. One suggested I email our homeowners association just to have the encounter documented. I did exactly that, and the HOA responded, confirming that my driveway is private property, and I have every right to deny access. By Friday, my youngest son's condition had worsened, and he developed a high fever. Around 7 p.m., I decided to take him back to the clinic. I opened my garage door only to find the massive F-350 parked directly in my driveway, completely blocking me in. Furious, I marched over to their house and pounded on the door. The mother answered, looking annoyed that I was interrupting their dinner. When I demanded they move the truck so I could take my sick child to the doctor, the father stepped up and claimed the truck wasn't blocking me. I told him I didn't care what he thought. The truck was on my property illegally, and if it ever happened again, I would have it towed immediately without warning. The son finally came to the door, took the keys, and moved the truck. As I walked back to my car, the teenager muttered a highly offensive sexist slur at me. While waiting at the clinic for several hours, I sent an update email to the HOA detailing the incident. Over the weekend, my oldest son and I also came down with the virus. On Sunday evening, my oldest son's fever spiked. I had to drive him to an urgent care clinic on the other side of town. After hours of waiting, the doctor prescribed an inhaler for his wheezing, and I had to find a 24-hour pharmacy to fill it. We did not get back to our house until midnight. My son was exhausted and I was coughing and completely drained. As we rounded the corner, my jaw dropped. The giant truck was parked in my driveway again, partially on my lawn, completely blocking our entrance. That was the last straw. I called a 24-hour towing service. While waiting, I brought my son inside, put him to bed, and took photos of the truck on my property as evidence. At 12:30 a.m., the tow truck arrived and quietly hauled the vehicle away. I sent another email to the HOA with the photos and went to sleep. At 6 a.m., loud, aggressive banging on my front door woke me up. I knew exactly who it was. I grabbed my phone, started recording video, and opened the door. The neighbor and his son stood there, absolutely furious. The father demanded to know where the truck was. I calmly told him it had been towed and gave him the name of the impound lot. He lost his temper, screaming that I had no right to tow it, that I had stolen his truck, and called me a barrage of highly offensive names. He threatened to call the police and sue me. I told him to go ahead, closed the door, and went back to bed. About 30 minutes later, the police arrived. I opened the door and greeted the officer. He explained that my neighbor had reported his son's truck stolen from the street. I told the officer he was only getting half the story. I explained the entire timeline, showed him the timestamp photos of the truck blocking my driveway and lawn, showed him the video of the father screaming slurs at my door, and handed him printed copies of my logged emails with the HOA. The officer walked over to inspect my lawn, took his own photos, and watched my video. He was incredibly professional. He asked me to email him the media files, confirmed that the vehicle was illegally parked on private property, and asked if I wanted to file a trespassing report. I told him I absolutely did. He gave me his business card with the case number, advised me to keep all my evidence in case of a civil lawsuit, and went over to speak with the neighbors. Later on, the police report revealed that the teenage son had lied to his father, claiming he had parked on the street. Once the officer confronted them with my photo evidence, the boy confessed. The family had to pay to retrieve the truck from the impound lot. The teenager eventually went to court for the trespassing charge. Supported by another neighbor who had caught the boy doing the same thing to them, the judge ordered the teen to pay a fine and gave him a stern warning about respecting boundaries. The neighborly friction actually brought out the best in my community. The neighbors rallied around me. A wonderful retired widower down the street began using his riding mower to cut my grass, refusing any payment. In return, I began cooking meals for him several times a week. He has become a dear friend and a grandfather figure to my boys. As for the entitled neighbors, the daily hassle of shuffling their cars around to accommodate the giant truck eventually wore them down. A few weeks ago, they finally got rid of the massive F-350 and replaced it with a much smaller vehicle.